Good morning and welcome to CFO Coffee Talk, brought to you by the Florida CFO Group. This morning's show is called Planning for Future Labor Markets, and we have a thought leader and expert in that space, Edwin Mouriño. Good morning, Edwin.
Good morning, Phil. How are you? Thanks for having me here, and happy Wednesday to everybody.
Well, we're glad to have you. As a host of a 15-minute show, guests like you pose a challenge, because for me to talk about all you do in an intro without chewing up the whole time is a challenge. Because I know you're an author. You've written 3 books, a speaker, an Air Force veteran. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And have founded a company called Human Intelligence Workspace, which we'll give you a chance to talk about. And you're a thought leader in workplace trends, which is the real reason we wanted you on our show, because as CFOs and business owners in our audience, we want to be able to be thinking ahead, to plan for the things we can do today to create competitive advantages in the future. So having said all that, Edwin, I want to first give you a chance to tell the audience a little bit about your story before we get into the trends.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that. So as you said, I started in the Air Force, is where I started this career. I was doing DE&I work back in the day when we used to call it human relations. I was trained right down the road here at Patrick Air Force Base, which is one of, at the time and still is today, I think considered one of the most extensive schools in the country, maybe the planet. But then I transitioned to the civilian world, where I got into leadership development, executive coaching, change management, those kinds of efforts in a variety of different industries and organizations. And eventually, as I finished up my doctorate, I started looking at trends and different issues like that, where eventually that led me to write a book, The Perfect Human Capital Storm, which is about some trends. I've written a second edition. I should write my third, because the pandemic has really shifted things and brought even more things to the forefront. So that today has brought me to where I am today, where basically some people like to call themselves futurists. I like to call myself a trends advisor, and really share information with organizations to say, now, what are the implications for us and how do we reinvent ourselves going forward? So that's a little bit about me.
No, that's great, Edwin. We need to be advised on trends so we can figure out how we're going to beat our future competitors. You do this through a company called Human Intelligence Workspace. Tell us about the kind of businesses you help.
Yeah, so Human Intelligent Workplace, it's really a play off of AI. My argument is, in the era of AI, you need HI, which is human intelligence. And so the psychology of the workforce has shifted. So the way I help organizations, I come in and speak to their leadership teams, particularly when they're doing strategic planning events, offsite retreats, and things of that nature. Also do leadership development work, team development work, executive coaching, those kinds of things. And I also offer a couple of questionnaires, a few questionnaires. One is on how to assess your organization from a human intelligent workplace perspective and reflect on that. The other one is leadership effectiveness. And the last one is how ready is your organization for change? For it. So I call it the Organizational Change Readiness Questionnaire. So that are some ways that I can work with organizations and do all different sizes, industries, and organizations around the planet.
Cool. And as a talk show host, hoping to extract the gems of wisdom for my audience, I'm going to ask that we pretend we're in front of a strategic planning group of business people that want to pick your brain about the trends they should be preparing for to create competitive edges in the future labor markets. What do you got for us?
Sure. So there's a variety of trends, but I'm just going to talk about 2 today. And that is, 1, the world is aging, and the U.S. is not out of that bucket. And also, particularly in the U.S., the generations coming behind it is growing more diverse, and in particular Latino. So I'll give you some examples of that. And being that, I'm part of talking to the CFO audience here, I'm going to tell you a story in numbers. So I'm going to start off with the first number, 2.1. That is the replacement rate for the workforce, 2.1. That takes into consideration births, deaths, immigration, and emigration. By the way, the U.S. is at 2.0. The only 2 countries, and that means they're borderline, and I'll talk about that in a moment, but the only 2 countries in the world that have enough, 2.8, is Mexico and India. Countries like China, Japan, Europe, and Germany, and other countries like that, they are way under. So the U.S. is at 2.1 The US is at 2.0 as an example. So let me give you an example when I take that deeper. So today, 60-year-olds are worth $22 trillion. That's what they bring to the market. In the US alone, it's estimated they're at $8.3 trillion, which if they were a country by themselves, just 60-year-olds, they would be third in the world from a GDP perspective. Here's another interesting number. Phil, I think you told me you have some grandchildren. Today, 60-year-olds outnumber 5-year-olds, and we will outnumber 18-year-olds in the near future. Now, along with that, there's some myths that go along with the aging workforce. One of them is that older workers cost too much. The reality is they don't. There's no research behind it. There's a great book out there called The Talent Revolution, and it talks about they don't. The two things that are not being considered into Phil's experience and mine is our experience and our expertise. What companies do is just compare salaries. That's it, type of thing. Here's another one, that they're not tech savvy enough. I would suggest to you that anyone out there Google up the name Martin Cooper. That gentleman, when he was almost 50, created the first phone, cell phone. Back in the day, Phil, you may have remembered seeing this. It was called the brick. It was about this big. And there's a picture on the internet with him showing that. He was actually 45. The other interesting thing with this aging workforce, we've known career stages along life. Well, today there's one called legacy careers. And that's people 50 to 75 years old. So that's an interesting thing. And then the average age for business owners, you and I were talking about this a little while ago. I went out and did some research. Turns out they're over 50 is the average age of people, small business and medium-sized business owners. And last, this was an interesting point. Forbes just last year came out, and the title of this article is this: the fastest growing demographic in the workforce, people over 75. So that you can see what's happening from that perspective. And I'll close out with this last note on this. Population aging fueled by declining birth rates and increase in life expectancy is a mega trend that's impacting the world at the end of the day. And you and I are familiar with the term yuppies. Well, today there's a term called dinks. It's dual income, no kids. And I just saw that on local news here not too long ago when I came across this, which basically is saying we're holding off to have our kids. But that's just one segment of what's impacting the world and in turn organizations and consumers around it.
Wow, that's a lot of powerful information there, Edwin. And a few things popped into my head as you were sharing that. One is you kind of remind me of my wife, who sometimes likes to compare guys in their 60s to 5-year-olds. Secondly, what you said about affordability, fractionalizing the elder C-level type execs is a way you achieve affordability without sacrificing much, because I will contend that jobs that benefit from experience, like a CFO, you get a very experienced CFO, they could probably run circles around the newbie CFOs who lack the experience at a fraction of the work week. So you save a lot of costs. You don't give up a lot of value, and by tapping into this older workforce.
Yeah.
But how do business owners position themselves to take advantage of the trend of the old aging workforce?
So before I get there, I want to add one other trend, because both of these create that perfect human capital storm. So I already told you about the aging workforce. So I'm going to come back to that question. But the second one is the group that's coming behind it. And it's growing and it's increasingly more diverse, in particular Latinos. So again, a story in numbers. It turns out that the millennials are the ones that are another segment of the group of demographics that's getting a lot of press. There's other generations behind it, the Y, the Z, and there's even an A generation. But the millennials, it turns out, are very diverse. I'll give you an example. Almost 50% of millennials are Latinos, 44% to be exact, followed by African Americans, followed by Asian, and then followed by white at that. Here's another piece that's very important. It turns out, and one of the reasons for that is because we have 63 million Latinos in the US, which makes the US the number 2 in the world for Spanish being spoken, and also for most Latinos. We have more Latinos in this country than Canada has Canadians and Spain has Spaniards. They make up 25% of the workforce, so 1 out of 4. They also make 25% of small businesses. Their purchasing power is 3.4 trillion, which if they were a country by themselves, it'd be fifth on the planet. And Latino-owned businesses are growing 10 times faster than non-Latino businesses. As a matter of fact, in this decade alone, it's estimated that Hispanics will make up 78% of the new US workers. And that sort of supports an interesting article that came out in 2015 by Forbes, where the title of the article was, "Without Hispanics, America's corporations can't compete and grow," type of thing. Matter of fact, right behind that, the SHIP, which is the Society for Hispanic Professional Engineers, has said that Latinos are the third fastest growing economy on the planet. So that gives you some interesting perspective. Now, to your question about, so what can businesses do? One is recognize diversity is here to stay from the different perspectives that we have. And it's actually a good business thing. There's some interesting research out there that says diverse teams make better decisions. As a matter of fact, there's one that says if you just put all males, 58% make better decisions. When you have a variety, whether it's gender, all of the diversity that you can, they make 87% better decisions. So businesses need to really think about a different way of thinking. You know, we can't use the 20th century models in the 21st century when everything is shifting around us. Secondly, recognize we all have our own conscious biases. I see an old person, I think they're not techie, as an example. Or I see someone Latino or whatever the ethnic group may be, or woman, and I think maybe they won't fit into my organization. So recognize our own biases. Utilize the leadership team that you may have to make sure that you're tapping into that group. And lastly, ensure that you're recognizing and including versus excluding. Because when we exclude, if you just think about the last time you were excluded from a conversation, from a call, from a meeting, or even when you were a kid and kids didn't let you play their teams, that goes to the pain part of our brain. And it doesn't help us out at the end of the day. So I'll stop there.
Okay. So there's a lot of competitive advantage for small and mid-sized business owners to build plans to tap into the talent that's in the aging and diverse workforces.
I agree 100%. And the better organizations, one is, like I said, reframe the 21st century practices, really be on the lookout for those unconscious biases, and ensure that our leaders are engaging that workforce, because it costs us when they don't engage. There's too much research being written about there when we have a disengaged workforce. And it turns out in the US, it's about 30% are engaged in the work they do. So how do we tap into that and capitalize and really stand out and be have a competitive advantage over the others that are going to tend to lose some of their workers?
Yes, hire them and engage them. Human intelligence, the name of your company, and it's a term you tossed out. Describe it for us. Give us a little more flavor for what you mean by human intelligence.
Yeah, so I told you something that you and I were having before we came on here. The psychology of today's workforce is changing. People are actually looking for happiness in the workplace, something that probably when you and I first started working, that was not something we were looking for. But people are looking for happiness, purpose, being appreciated, recognized, those kinds of things, and also to be healthy, because it turns out that work is the 5th cause of death due to stress. And managers have a bigger impact than that. So my mission with our organization is to help organizations look in the mirror and going, what kind of practices are we putting in place to ensure that we're human-centered? Because even though technology is going to continue to evolve and be part of our livelihood and everyday experience going forward, still humans will be at work. So how do we make the workplace a great place? So I have some questionnaires I can use with people. I do speaking engagements, also do leadership development, and try to help organizations ramp up and really create a competitive advantage from a human-centered experience at the end of the day.
Wonderful. Edwin, you shared a lot of nuggets of wisdom with us. I'm guessing maybe some of the business owners in our audience will have a hunger for more and want to know how to get a hold of you. Please share your contact information. What's the best way for our audience to reach you?
Yeah, either A, I'm on LinkedIn, Edwin Mouriño, or B, my company, Human Intelligent Workplace. You can find that out there. Obviously, we'll post some things on LinkedIn, so you'll be able to get a hold of me that way. Just Google me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there. Or again, my business, Human Intelligent Workplace. Reach out to me. And if there's one nugget I could leave everybody with is make sure that you're creating an engaging and diverse workforce, because it will provide a strategic competitive advantage for you. Small, medium, or large, it doesn't matter.
Excellent. Thank you for that one sentence key takeaway, Edwin, and thank you for being a guest on our show. I
Thank
hope we
you.
connect later.
All
Take
right.
care, everybody. Bye now.